I'm Dax Ferguson. This is Dan Stoltzfus. Today we have the pleasure and honor of bringing Kaylee, the Apartment Queen, to the show to talk about multifamily investments, how she's done it, where she's come from, and all that. So without going on too long, let's talk about who you are, what you are, and how you got to where you're at today. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so a brief introduction to me would be someone that got into real estate as an agent first. Then once I realized that there was the ability to invest and make your own, create your own job, and not necessarily be representing other people, and being able to have infinite possibilities created out of whatever you see in front of you, whether it's land, whether it's buildings, and then be able to create cash flow and also appreciation that could feed you and your family for a lifetime. I was definitely hooked on trying to figure out not only how I could do that as a job, or I guess as a role, but also long-term being able to figure out how to be creative in the way that I do it. So we do it a little bit differently at our business, the Apartment Queen. So wanted to be a little unique in the way that we do the value add and the multifamily investing.
So you started in this through the single family as a realtor, and did houses, and then you started flipping houses for investment strategies, and then came over to multifamily?
Yeah.
So how long have you been in that realm, and when did you start that, and when did you switch over to multifamily?
Real estate in total, 7 years. I guess this is year number 7 for me. And then it really was an interesting transition because I was sort of doing multiple things at the same time, testing my foot over here and over there. I actually got started in leasing. So I got started on that side of things and understanding the marketing and how to drive demand into apartments and concessions. I was working with luxury apartments, so a little bit different product, the things that we do now, but eventually we'll get there. And so seeing that side of things and the people side of things was really where I started. And then sort of quickly after a year of doing that in every piece of the luxury and then the mid-grade things and getting into helping those clients get into their first condo, smaller level houses, so $150,000 houses, then $250,000, then closer to $1 million, just over time testing what kind of clientele I liked working with. And really overall, I liked being able to run my own leasing business because I actually hired a few VAs, figured out how to create a process out of what I was doing for my leads and then multiply it so that we could outperform everybody else on the team. So it was really your own business. And you had to work with clients, but if you could delegate to other people a certain part of the process, I only had to close them. Pretty much was all I had to do, and I like closing, so I like doing that. But over time, I tested out going from working with people to then representing real estate investors after learning what a real estate investor is, and then getting involved with Propelio, actually. And so there was a whole huge education network out there to learn about how to invest in all kinds of parts of real estate. So whether it was the land acquisition, whether it was multifamily, whether it was note buying, building houses, renovating, there's so many different parts to investing. I was hooked. At the time, I also had a personal organizing business that I was doing and as a real estate agent. So really, I then turned all my focus to multifamily and took the commissions that I had made selling houses at the time into earnest money deposits on my first 2 apartments way out in West Texas.
Wow.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yes, so we've had a bunch of people on here. We've talked about transitions from single family to multifamily, and most everybody. Obviously, they say, hey, just skip the line. Don't worry about if you're in single family, get out, get into multifamily. If you're not in anything, get into multifamily.
Yeah.
But from your words, what do you have to say to that? What was your leading argument for pushing you into multifamily?
For me, I realized I had a subconscious mission that I really didn't. I thought one day I would have a nonprofit. I thought one day I would help people like myself who needed to get away from poor situations, living situations, and people in their life that were influencing them not to improve, but pulling them back and hurting them not only physically but financially. And so that was always there. And I thought, okay, well, these single-family houses, maybe I could have a few rentals. Maybe I could do something good for someone and then rent out one of the rooms for cheaper, or work with certain programs. Maybe I could do something like that. And then I realized after getting involved in Propelio, that actually Will Crozier at the time really inspired me to take your smarts and to multiply, by 10x or 20x or however you want to say it, and be able to create more impact by having more volume, more units, more investors, and there's also more risk with all of that, but at the same time, having a bigger impact with your mission when you have more influence. And so he sort of used his celebrity for good, which was really cool to see, and I wanted to do the same thing. So I noticed, okay, this was the jump that I needed, and getting into my first few meth house flips and running into, guys yelling at me and trying to put liens on the properties every Friday if their plumbing job wasn't paid for because they weren't finished. They just kind of pushed on me, and it was just me. I didn't have a team. I didn't have a network. I didn't have support. I didn't have what I wanted to do was scale and do, say, 10 of these jobs at a time, and it was going to take a team, to do that. And so what I also saw was in multifamily, there you kind of inherently come with a team, with your property, and then, but it's also different. You also have to build your own team, too, over time, and it's not just the property level people and then their management company, for example, but you do have some support in that way. I also believed that the type of contractors that I worked with, because they do more work and because this is something that is a larger price tag job, and then also they're not trying to hustle every client in the world, working 50 jobs at a time. They have maybe, say, one client that has several jobs on one site. And I just felt that some of the multifamily construction companies out there had better reputations and they cared more about it
Some do.
than these little guys that just disappear kind of thing. So that was something else. I wanted more professionalism. I wanted a team. I wanted to have scalability. I wanted to create influence. I wanted to do all the things that multifamily seemed to have. So it really attracted me. And then also, if you're doing things in a smart way and you find a knack for doing something and you just keep tweaking that process and making it better, I also like that too. I actually have to watch myself a little bit because someone asks me all the time, like, what drives you? What is that thing that just keeps you going? And, is it greed? Is it need for approval? What is it? And for me, it's actually improvement. So I get a dopamine hit from being like, oh, look at that. We tweaked it. Oh, it got better. I really like that a lot. So I just saw that being a never-ending learning experience in multifamily. And that's totally been the truth.
From processes to physically making something
Yeah.
better, right? So,
Yeah.
Well, I want to ask a couple of questions there in what you were just going through. So was your first property a house hack? Did you house hack your first property?
No, I've actually never done that. Well, I'm doing it now, actually. I'm living in one of my multifamilies.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if you had house hacked, because I know at some point you had a room for rent or something like that. So I was thinking you house hacked it.
I kind of arbitraged that one.
Okay.
I found an owner of a house and then got her to agree that I could rent out a room, and then it ended up paying for mine plus some split profit.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. And then you've touched on helping others, and I don't want to go over that lightly, because I know you have a huge passion for helping women who've been in situations that you've been in the past. So let's talk about that. If you want to talk about it, I would like to talk about that.
100%. So, I mean, in the very beginning, it was a little bit of difference, if you ask me, and maybe some piece of information or some sort of like security resource, for someone that knows me. Oh, did you know you could text message someone else encrypted so someone else couldn't find out your whereabouts if you need to be somewhere else? Those are little things to me, but hey, I've actually been told that made a big difference for them. So as little as that, and then all the way to, so we've got several levels of people that we kind of touch or get involved with. So we have the property level residents that we have. Then on top of that, of course, we have our team. And we have our investors too. So whatever level, we touch all those people. And so how can we make a difference with each of them? So we really focus on empowering women financially. And so really thinking through how to model that. Say startup property level, this has been more of a recent development because I've had a little bit of time to work with the city of Fort Worth, for example. They have some veterans organizations. I have another friend that's in more of the nonprofit space. So helped me to reach out to them and find programs that align with our tenant profile we need so they can afford the rent. So usually the program is paying for the rent. They are required to have a job. They have to have a clean criminal background. So some things that we require, but these programs will have, say, 30 people and maybe 10 qualify, and we can take them. And the coolest thing to me has been watching in the property that I moved into. It's a very small community, and it's very secure. We make sure that the gates are working and cameras are working, and there's been lots of times I've had to send camera footage for things. These people that are, let's just say, like a small family unit, where there's something like I experienced where the male in the family wasn't a great influence and was hurting them, and they had to remove themselves. So this has tended to be a place where they start over. You get your own new clean unit. It's secure and safe. You have your kids there, and so you're also getting a new job, and you probably moved geographically away from wherever you were and starting over. And my big impact on me, because you also get some reinforcement or positive reinforcement, I think, psychologically from doing good things for other people, has been when those single moms will be able to get to about a year when that program ends, and then they have increased their income over time where they can now replace the program and they can pay for their own rent, their own bills, and then they stay. So the program's success used to be 50%, I'd say it's probably like 60% now, somewhere in there. So it's not 100% of people can stay, and that's okay, but I just like having that partnership and that opportunity to really kind of, keep an eye on the community and make sure that I live there, making sure. So on a small level, that's, something that I've been excited to do that I think benefits people like myself who needed to start over. And then, our investors win because in the process, too, being able to even meet our pro forma or our projected numbers for our rent increases, these programs, if I talk to them in the right way, like I learned how to when I was leasing, we can figure out a way to beat our projected rents. And actually, so we make the investors the money. It's not a charity.
Right.
But we're still benefiting the lives of other people, and that was, mind-blowing to me. Everybody wins, you know? So that's a small level there on the property. Then I would say when it comes to our internal team, we're really excited to work with different women that have different skill sets. You obviously have to have partnerships with people that have different skill sets. My biggest skill set, I would say, would be the mission, vision, values, and culture of our business, and that's where I'm thriving the most. However, over some tough times, I've learned to jump in operationally and really create clear strategy, key performance indicators, and processes for everything so I can quickly figure out where the bottlenecks are and then dive in with a plan to fix it and then back out again. That's taken some time to figure all that out and then, extrapolate or pull it out of all of our heads. And then different skill sets, meaning, so we've got someone on our team who has been with me 4 deals in a row now, and she's more of the analyst mind, and she's very calm. She's Swedish. She's very direct. I really appreciate that. There's times where you hear something from the bank and it may sound a little goofy or what, kind of reaction, and she doesn't react. She's just like, okay, it's really simple. We just go into the spreadsheets we submitted, we look at the data, and typically what happens is something was turned in incorrectly, the report was ran wrong, something like that, and so we're able to fix everything by just calmly working through it. So she's been instrumental in that front, and then sort of as an asset manager, keeping her eyes on the property level financials, and then getting those, if there's any red flags, kind of digging deeper, and then getting those to, we have a fractional CFO. She's actually not here in Texas, but she's worked for different funds in the tech space, and so she's very good at fund accounting. So yeah, different skill sets for sure, and we just really want to work with women. We're working right now on finding someone who is much better than I am, being what would be our VP of capital markets. Mm-hmm. So she has raised, I've raised probably close to 20 million maybe. In the last couple of years, she's raised 80 million. Oh, wow. Yeah. And so she's international as well. She used to work for the government in Trinidad and Tobago. She's just really impressive, And so I'm like, how can I learn from you and create a better process from you're the expert, and that's what you need in your company is people that are experts at what they do instead of me doing everything. Then when it comes to our mission, not yet do we have this role, but what we see is having sort of like a consultant or really someone who's focused on community improvement and really rolling out a program for all of our communities that has to do with what resources we offer for people on top of just a safe place to live. So there's other nonprofits and other groups out there that offer apps that do telehealth. They offer credit repair help. They offer employment help, bringing in things to our community centers like Boy Scouts of America. That would be a brand manager, if you ask me, that goes to each property and makes sure that we're implementing these strategies to keep the community safe, supported, and then also like even mothers that babysit each other's kids. Like there's a little network, and like on Facebook, a resident council, and so we want to have these things. But I can't do that. Also, I've got someone in mind that I think she'd be really good at that, and likes working with people. So we want to focus on empowering women at the property level, in the C-suite / in our company team, and then also when it comes to investors, how do we create a model where we're benefiting ladies, but also dealing with the trends of the market as they are? So we have to look at the data of our fundraising and see where is the money coming from. And for us, executives in our industry are 87% male. And then there's other ethnic groups that chop up the rest of what's available, and then women's a small percent, and C-suite executives. Mm-hmm. Then when it comes to also on the fundraising side, when I'm looking at what we receive, it's pretty much the same thing. So it's like, okay, well, if all these people are giving us money, they likely are a father, they likely are a uncle, they likely are a husband or a boyfriend or someone of another lady that they care about, and they want her to succeed in her own life financially. It's America, it's capitalism. If we don't have access to funds, we don't have any power. I'm sorry, that's just how it works. So we've changed our cross-promotion marketing and the way that we talk to people more about, okay, women and anyone out there who's got a lady that they want to change their life or touch, will help them get into this investment for way less money. We did a crowd fund where we took $5,000 from women that got into these investments, same returns. We also did an incentive for those that were accredited to either start their own LLC and bring a lady into their LLC. They divvy up, shares their own way, but she would get therefore paid out on the profits. Or they could sponsor her, so she could invest maybe not 5,000, maybe like 25 or something, a normal amount, and then that person would sponsor them and help them to be accredited by sort of partnering with them. Yeah. Or they could basically say, hey, I want to give you read-only access to my investment. And then that way they have their own login and they can see all the reporting. They can see, oh my God, a fire happened this week. Okay, here's what we did about it. Here's how we've turned it around. Here's what we're doing with insurance. And here's how we got to profit. So they can see in real time things that might seem stressful or crazy. Real estate's really forgiving. Yeah. Unless you have exposure to the knowledge and the experience, and maybe have your money while you're learning invested. That's really powerful. So we wanted to create those opportunities.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
really, really
that's awesome. We both have our mission opportunities that we go after and things that we're passionate about in that area. But I think it's really cool when you can tie it in with business and kind of do business as missions and kind of do both together. So we were talking a little bit off camera before we started the podcast here about operational things with properties now and how for everybody in the industry, things are slowed down a little bit. Acquisitions kind of dropped off for a while. I think they're picking back up, and we don't have to talk about that. We can or whatever, but we talked about operationally how things have improved, and it's given everyone time to kind of hone in. So you were kind of talking about that just now, but how has that really played effect into your mentality right now?
Yeah, it's interesting because maybe you have this idea of how you think things should go in the world, and then they don't, and so then there's a gap between expectation and reality, and so that leads to unhappiness, and really I want to be happy. So the best way for me has been to just deal with what is, and what is a spaciousness that's been created between all of this busy work that I thought that I had to do, and 12 people that I had on the team that are no longer there anymore that I was managing, instead of like focusing on cleaning things up and creating processes and making sure that, so for example, I used to have a lot of KPIs, and now it's down to a small set of them that just drive the net operating income, because I'm realizing, you learn all these things from, so there's asset management institutes that are out there that you can get your CCIM from. I've been reading a lot of those books. So there's a lot of things you could track, but also you've got, now that I have taken over a property, owner managing one, and realizing what it's like all the time. I mean, you can't just bog people down with numbers. That's really what your asset manager should do. But knowing what the key things are for everyone on the team to be aware of that we're tracking, but not everything,
Right.
those key things. So honing in on what really matters, I think, has been created in that space that I've been given. And then also, it's interesting because I read and learn a lot. And so during the lockdown, I did a lot of things, but one of them was, for some reason, wanting to read consulting books on how to turn around multifamily assets. So I ended up reading a few and then creating a process from them, which is pretty arduous, reading and then this, then, creating checklists out of all the things. And I ended up creating some Trello boards or process boards of, if I were to take over a failing asset, what would I look at first to look at the biggest financial bottlenecks? Who would I negotiate with first? What would I offer? What are all the options with these lenders that are being aggressive? And it's kind of amazing because that's been useful. So all this time has prepared me, to deal with the challenges that were coming my way, regardless of if I was ready for them or not. I mean, I guess I'm ready. So
What's your favorite book in that?
oh my God, I can't remember the author of it, but it's how to take a I can't remember from a,
I'll put you on the spot. Sorry.
yeah. I'm trying to remember what it is. It's a white book that's got a green writing on it, like puke green. How to take an asset from a money pit to a money maker, I'm pretty sure is the name of it, and I can't remember the author. But that book I've recommended to a lot of people because that's what that guy does. And realizing the amount of incredible detailed work, and then you're constantly negotiating with everybody, whether it's your staff, your vendors, your lender, your investors, I mean, just literally everyone constantly, and then being there. And so it's a lot. So that space has created the space I needed to be able to execute and get us out of these challenges that apparently had been there for a while, but I needed to really see everything to be able to fix it. So, yeah, created what I needed.
I've worked with a lot of different asset managers over the several years, but here lately, you're seeing more of the professional asset manager.
Right.
And what I mean by that is, it's not the syndicator is the asset manager who was an engineer 3 years ago or had another job. It's the professional. This is a business that they have all their KPIs put together and all this. And I'm getting asked questions today. I'm like, I don't know the answer to your question, and it's making me better as a company, right? And so I'm looking at things differently today than I did 2 years ago. I'm looking at more detail in certain areas and how I can help the property be more successful, because I didn't think about some of this stuff. So I think, coming out of this time that we're in today, I think everybody's going to be sharper. Everybody's going to be better. Or let me say this, I think a lot of people, not everybody.
Those that survive.
Right, those that survive.
Yeah.
They're just going to be more dialed in to what needs to happen on a property and react quicker when things start turning, and hire slow, fire quick.
Yep.
I mean, those are all part of the processes that are going to be changing. People want to believe good in everybody, but sometimes you need to fire the person and move on and get the next person in. So I think a lot of that change is going to happen, and it's going to be as this market turns around, as we've talked about numerous times, when it turns around, that these people are going to come in. They're going to come in slow with a lot sharper operation skills and be ready for whatever comes at them. So
yeah, I mean, there's tons of books and podcasts and videos out there about this is what you need to do. This is how you should do it. But until you're put in a place where you actually have to do it, you're not learning. So I think a lot of people are learning a lot of new skills right now. So it's good.
And I think you've been under the fire, in a couple of your projects, and we've talked about them offline.
Yeah.
And so you've dialed in your processes even more from what you thought 2 years ago, or when you were really going through this time.
I mean, even when it comes to engagement on the legal front, exactly how to look at your invoicing, exactly how to demand that billing is delivered to you, exactly how to know, on your engagement agreement, how to cover your butt there. I mean, literally, here is what we will pay per hour for like a corporate attorney to do this, and when we need to serve these things, we need to make sure a paralegal at $50 an hour is doing this. Like literally, if I'm not seeing your billing statement weekly, then I'm going to get a $75 or 75% discount because this is how I require to work with you, you know? And yeah, I get it. Sometimes people say I'm really difficult, but at the same time, we're just asking them to be accountable to the work that they've actually done, not overbill. We run assets that are not, you know, huge cash cows until we sell.
Yeah.
So we have to be very operationally lean, and that's part of my job,
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely. I think that's incredible. Well,
Like, I'm not paying for this. You know, and I can't wait to see at the end of all of this kind of, you know, I've gone through some stuff and I'm still going through it, but we're starting to turn a corner where I have just really done a great job at collecting all of the data. Like I've got files and files of conversations, reports, emails that were sent. You know, you can download the email and make it a PDF and save it for later. So you're like, boom, here's what happened. I've learned to get more and more and more organized in that fashion so that when you need to pull something up, it's quick, and it really helps you in the sense of any kind of like lawsuits or aggression or anything. If you just have that on hand, you're like, hey, look, like this is what we talked about, and like, oh yeah, so then it helps with your stress level and it helps with all of that. But even though this is taking up a lot of my bandwidth right now, and in the prior couple of years before now, we've been able to acquire 74 million assets under management. We've raised over 20 million. We had over 400 investors on and off throughout the time that we've purchased properties. We've sold 5 at a 2.8x multiple average. So that's what's happened so far. I've got a couple more of those to sell, and then a couple I think I want to keep long-term, condo convert one, and keep the other one. But moving forward into new acquisitions, I can't wait to see how much more profitable we can make them, and how much of a better job we can do from the get-go. I've learned even moving into the properties the kind of things I need to be looking for, and being willing to do that for 6 months. Then everyone's trained exactly, they know what we're looking at, and then kind of to peel off, but then also train those that are working with you on your team to look at it the same way. What is that book? It's a military book, ownership.
I don't know that one.
Jocko Willink.
I know Jocko.
Oh, yeah, we know Jocko.
It's not unlimited ownership, but it's basically speaking about ultimate ownership, or so basically you're not only going to like fall on the sword, but also being able to take all of the things that happen with the team and being an owner.
Yeah.
So I've also realized it's tough with these properties because sometimes you get so many, and again selling off a bunch and then creating this space to really dig into them. I've also realized the amazing amount of morale and the amazing amount of work product that can be done, and basically ownership that someone on site, almost to my level, can handle risk, can meet their KPIs and what they need to, because they really care. So it's also about making sure that the team also acts as an owner. And I know that a lot of the times people sometimes even discourage that. Yeah. But really I've found that once they know that I'm in it, they're in it. Also deflating my ego. Also, you don't wear watches when you go to the site. You listen. You care about their families. You give them a little gift when you get there. You just become a part of the team, and it's amazing what we're able to turn around. So,
what is the saying? Nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care.
Right.
Yeah, something like
or
that.
people don't forget how you make them feel, or I mean, it's incredible like how just being a human being can make a difference.
Being a decent human being.
Yeah, I think a lot of us, there's a lot of fear that we carry around, that when you're feeling this cortisol spike in that fear, it's easy to act like the jerk, or be really too direct, or, my old trauma comes out, and I just am kind of bossy. And it's like that doesn't actually get anything anywhere. Yeah. It's actually better, for me to listen and support where needed, and then kind of as things seem scary for everybody, just reinforcing like, hey, we will figure this out. I will be right beside you. We'll figure out like the legal things. I'm going to take that off your plate. You focus on this part, and then so it's definitely a team thing. So that's good to experience firsthand myself, because I know moving forward, anyone that's coming on my principal team, they've got to have those same values where they're willing to jump in there. They're willing to be humble. They're willing to be like a real team member, and not, hey, I do this for a job. And therefore, the best people I've met that owner operate like huge hotels. There's not a day that they don't jump in there and help clean the pool.
Yeah.
And maybe they don't even know they're the owner, and that's really part of this humbling experience for me, is being a better person and a better operator.
Yeah, no, very true. Well, I've got a question. You said some things in there that sparked another question for me that we didn't talk about.
Yeah.
But you're buying assets today of B or C, right? What has your investment strategy changed from where it has been to where you look moving forward in this business in the multifamily world? Because I know you're helping people out, and there's certain classes of properties that make that a little easier. We'll just say that to work with the programs and do that. But you jumping to an A, you may not be able to keep that same desire and fulfill the dreams that you have. So what's that look like for you moving forward?
I would definitely say keeping in the workforce housing realm is definitely a great product to focus on, to be able to still implement our programs, changing the vintage, and then also when we do our due diligence, making sure that we have a schedule of the ages of everything that's basically going to go out, and we have the money pre-assigned ahead of time for those replacements. I'd say that helps reduce the amount of stress that gets induced by things breaking all the time. Also finding properties, say, even if it is a 72, 75 that's well maintained, and so you're like, okay, well, we only have to do this and this and this, and that's it. Versus, what I used to do is look at really cheap assets where there is everything to fix and, to me, unlimited upside. Yeah. However, in the process of doing all that, losing staff morale because of things breaking all the time and people quitting. Also, just the increased cost if the market changes as far as supply demand. And there's so many more other factors involved, but something that's a little newer, I think, is important, and or very well maintained. That's very important to get involved with, and then focusing on people that may not be able to just go out and buy a house. Yeah. So whatever demographic of people, and what's interesting is sometimes I've had a friend of mine that buys in Houston, they've purchased almost brand new apartments that are like a 2012, 2015 build. However, they're built in a neighborhood sort of like McKinney or somewhere where it's a little bit more wealthy. So the average home in that neighborhood is like $850,000, and so paying like $2,000 in rent is not egregious. It's not crazy. So it's still, if you look at the delta between what a home payment would look like versus that, they get that community, those schools, that neighborhood, but there is actually some value add remaining.
Well, and there's women in need of assistance in all economic demographics. So,
that's true.
Oh my God, some of my friends personally that may have lived in that neighborhood and then gotten a divorce, and their children want to stay in that school district, and they have no more money anymore because maybe they lost it all in the divorce, and so they have a job and they want to stay in that central location, but they could definitely benefit from being able to have telehealth, like I was mentioning earlier, from our community, or being able to help at that point repair their credit, or being able to have access to maybe a better job, a resume writing, etc. Boy Scouts of America programs for their little guy after school kind of thing. When family dynamics change, it's important to have community support. Child care is another big thing. Not that this is part of the brand yet, but idealistically in the future, there are a couple apartments in Texas I've kind of modeled. What I'd like to do is either partnering with a daycare, or some of the assets have been built around a daycare or really nearby where there's a program worked out. That, for me, as a woman meeting other women, it's really important to empowering someone financially, a woman financially, is different in so many ways. But really, it's being able to have support, because if she's able to afford childcare, and then she can spend her time working or even doing a new startup if she wanted to, versus having to have the responsibility, I can't afford childcare, I've got to be with my kids all the time. It's an impossibility for me to grow the way that I am even capable of. So for me, that is a form of empowerment, and that really does something for the community as a whole. Her children are watching her do those things. That's how they learn. So it's a layered effect that we can have, not just our on-site families and our investors and their families, and then also our partners and their families.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
I've talked to several syndicators, operators out there that have put programs in place, and I've helped them. Like Red Cross will come out and teach the teenage girls, and I'm using that because
Yeah.
they're the ones that babysit the kids mostly, is the teenage girls. But they'll teach them CPR and things of that nature to help them be a better not only babysitter but person in the community that can help multiple people. And then teach fire safety. Fire department comes out, all these free services that a lot of people don't access just because they don't. It's not that they don't care. I'm not saying that. It's just they don't take the time to really dive into their communities and help their communities be better. And that brings a stickiness factor that people want to stay in that community because this very community driven. They do community events and all that stuff. So I've helped put a few of those programs together to help people out as well. So I think they're
So you see the importance of having a community. And it really helps the turnover rate too.
Yes.
We effectively would love our turnover rate to be 0. It's depending on studios, the size of the units, the families, not families. I mean, that all affects it too. But if you have an anchored community, that's what keeps people around, even when things break.
Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah, so true.
So we like to kind of end all of our podcasts with a story. I think we gave you a little bit of a pre-warning. But usually we don't. But this is your chance to entertain us with something something good.
Entertaining, I would say there's a lot of things I've learned for sure. Something that's been entertaining to me is whenever we've done our investments and we've offered them to fathers of daughters, things like that. It's been really interesting to hear feedback from their daughters that maybe like push back and they're like, I don't care about this, I don't want to know. But there's maybe a couple of daughters that are a little older and they're accessing the information, and so they're kind of like their little buddy, and then they'll kind of check and look at it and then start asking questions. And so for me, learning, like I mentioned, children watch their influences. So for me, being able to even give that opportunity, that's been it's not funny, but I was surprised, and I learned that even when someone tries to, I don't want to be like my sister, I don't want to be like my dad or whatever, if it's just around, they tend to at some point ask some questions and want to get involved. And if it's just the awareness and knowledge of something that starts piquing the interest and then getting them to be able to independently invest, so a lot of high net worth individuals that we work with when it comes to investing in projects that we do, we can also affect their children, and they can too. And I think if I were them, that would make me very proud that, hey, my daughter can have her own login to look at things. We do women-focused property tours when we buy a new asset. We do what we can, to be able to affect as many lives as we can with our investments. I'd say funny story. I don't know. We've honestly bought an old hospital at one point in time, and people die in hospitals. So it's really interesting that, especially for Halloween, we had a couple of residents that took like a YouTube video of them being like dead in the apartment and walking around. And like I've slept there several times myself before, and so they're friendly ghosts. I've never been bothered by any of them. I've never had any nightmares when I were there, but I just thought it was funny that as a community, they were like making fun of the apartment for, having dead people, and like some older people pass away over the years. So I thought that was kind of funny. And it's on YouTube, so if you go look at the Larson Historic Apartments on YouTube, you can see some of their jokes that they make. But that community is very interesting. So I guess that's the funniest.
I stayed at a property like that in the Ozarks years ago, and
really?
it was a supposedly haunted old hospital facility that they turned into. They had some houses out around there that they rented out, and it was interesting. I don't know that I saw any ghosts, but it was interesting. Well, thanks a lot for giving your time and coming on here and talking to us.
100%.
Really appreciate it, and appreciate your time. Yeah.
So I'm going to ask one question before we go, because I think it's important. For the investment side, we'll have all that stuff up there. But for your programs and stuff for other women that may need your help or may know somebody that needs your help, do you want them to reach out to you through what we're going to put up on contact, or do you have a different way you want them to contact you?
Yeah, so I would say someone told me about this not too long ago. What way do we engage? So I would say that a high net worth individual typically made their money through knowing something about the financial markets, maybe owning a business, something like that. typically, if they're going to invest with us, they're a passive investor. Not always. They can also partner up with us if they, say, are a lender. Those are great groups, or like a JV with a private equity group, something like that. But typically, it's an individual person, and what they'll do is they'll just go, for information's sake, read a book called The Perfect Investment by Paul Moore. And that book is like this big. It's teeny tiny. It's so easy to read. I think it's like 5 chapters. But that gives you an unbiased perspective as a passive investor. If you were investing in stocks, bonds, mutual funds, multifamily, single family, it doesn't go into crypto because this guy doesn't believe that was a thing yet. But point is looking at what it is to be a passive investor. Once you are kind of familiar with that, I'd say you'd then be able to figure out, if you're a high net worth individual, which is usually $200,000 or so per year or more that you make in income. There is a link that you can get from us to get qualified or to get on a call, either way. And you would just text the phone number 214-699-8810 to get qualified, and we can handle that, or a phone call, whichever you prefer first. If you're an investor who is brand new to the game, I would still recommend that book to understand passively how passive real estate investments compare to all other investments and why you would do it. And then here's something else. So, hey, you want to get in, and you may say, I want to get in, but I have no money. There's also the ability to use your 401k, an IRA, or retirement account. If you're a teacher, sometimes like an old TSP savings account you can also use. So while you're working actively in your job, especially if you're switching jobs or you just switched a job, you can use those funds to work for you and make much more money than they were before, and sometimes over time more than your job. But if you're making income over here, and then you're also making income over here at the same time, you're making your money work for you. So that's something that you can do as well. We can also guide you through that process of being able to utilize those accounts. But most people that think that they don't have any money, that's not correct. You do. You have more wealth than you think you do. And not in this market, but sometimes in a market where you could refinance some of the equity out of your house. That would be another way to create capital that could work for you while you're working. So you have 2 streams of income. Multiple streams of income is how we're going to empower women and those who care about empowering women, because some of us need sometimes to create these passive income streams to even have the time to talk to our family members, So we'd just, number one, you'd text us 214-699-8810. We can send you a qualifying quiz or hook you up with a call. And I would really recommend, like I said, that book by Paul Moore, The Perfect Investment. So you just have a basic knowledge of what passive income means and why multifamily is so awesome for that.
Very cool.
Awesome.
Very cool. Well, thanks again. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
appreciate it.
And,
100%.
look forward to your next ones.